I realized on the other side that my one action affects everyone, that the Matrix records everything we do on Earth, even when we don't think anyone is watching. And you realize, thanks for listening today, everyone. We stop to thank the community. We've joined with BetterHelp, the world's leading online therapy platform, because we've seen many of you assisting each other through sorrow in the comments, which is lovely. BetterHelp matches you with certified therapists who listen and offer unbiased guidance on depression, grief, anxiety, relationships, trauma, and more. Use the link in the video description to support this channel and get 10% off your first therapy month. BetterHelp lets you text, call, or video chat. You will usually be matched with a therapist within 48 hours and able to book sessions and transfer therapists for free. If you've lost someone or are suffering, consider BetterHelp. Get 10% off your first month of therapy by clicking the link in the description. I'm Peter Anthony. I was nearly killed in the late 1980s. I remember the ambulances flashing blue, red lights. I recall paramedics peering down at me when I arrived. Stress was evident on their faces. Their expressions expressed urgency and timing. We had a nightmare entering the admissions room. During my period, the AIDS epidemic was at its peak. I was in the news division and had brown sores on my face and coughed over the summer when I lost a lot of weight. I was turned away by the hospital since it wasn't the best time in my life to be admitted. My friend brought me there with the paramedics and urged I be treated, mentioning that I was with the news division, which helped. An intern dressed like I was active and put me on a gurney after the admitting clerk checked me in. I was bleeding without knowing I had diverticulitis, TB, or Crohn's disease. I looked up and reached for the intern as I was rushed to the ER in great pain. The ache in my abdomen was awful. I tried to talk to him to figure out what was going on, but he appeared panicked. I could only see his eyes and perspiration on his brow as he pulled me into a corner and left me. It took a while until a nurse, Nurse Susan, came from the exit area where I was pushed by the garage. She saved me that night by approaching me again. She saw me coughing, blood on the gurney, and facial lesions. She thought I had AIDS because of the late 1980s AIDS hype. I convinced this nurse to take me to the ER, which she did reluctantly. I entered room 11, a cubicle with blinds. Coughing, she pushed me in there with bloody garments. She was talking to the anesthesiologist, nurses, and medical staff. As she's having a heated conversation with one of the doctors, she opens the curtain and says, "We're nurses, we're doctors, we need to take care of this patient." She grabs my clothes and says, "I'm going to take these clothes off." She takes some of my clothes off and goes back to where she was. She undressed, cleaned, and mopped. This is essential since no one knew how AIDS was spread during the outbreak. People were dying of the AIDS virus, and I was in the ER, according to them, exposing them. We didn't know if it was airborne or bloodborne. She put me on my side, cleaned me, and got the gurney. In this play, I'm in and out of awareness. As we entered the OR, I saw the physicians, nurses, and anesthesiologists rushing around. The panic on their expressions was profound. I knew then that something terrible would happen to me. I was bleeding everywhere with tremendous abdominal discomfort. As I was placed on the operating table, the anesthesiologist tossed me on my side, warned, "This is going to hurt," and I went out in seconds. While watching this medical personnel go into protocol, Peter Anthony, meaning myself in spirit or ethereal form, looked down at Peter Anthony on the operating table in physical form. It was as if everything was in 3D. The clock, cart table, name tags, masks, and everything else were visible to me. I recall gazing down at my body and feeling like something had attached itself to my solar plexus, pulling me. As I ethereally looked down at Peter in physical form, I saw a spinning tunnel. I call it the bullseye. I'm being pulled into the tunnel before me because my spirit and body connections became one. I saw people from this lifetime in this tunnel. I saw my sister, relatives, neighbors, and even my third-grade teacher who had died. I felt this welcoming, this surrender, as if they were saying, "Come on in. This is your new place, your new home. Come with us." There was no logic in "Who are you? What are you doing here? I thought you died." No illogic. I calmly accepted this because it felt right. I recall spinning into this tunnel and seeing these mathematical codes immediately. Some of them are challenging quantum physics for numerologists nowadays. Angel codes minus 222, 333, 444, 999 spin before me as music and color. I can't express color, sounds, math frequency, and downloading and comprehending each code. I felt like I was psychically connected to the world. I felt like I took a crash course on world history, Einstein, Darwin, your school teachers, the priest I went to Catholic school with. All of this collective intelligence was being downloaded into my consciousness from 0 to 60 and getting it and understanding it. As I go through this tunnel, I'm accepting it. In addition to seeing the colors and mathematical symbols spinning around me, I downloaded consciousness and realized that everything that happens to us on this planet, from birth to death, is recorded. Every second, instant, and breath counts. What we do matters. I realized there's no judgment when I went through this tunnel. There is no black, white, homosexual, heterosexual, Muslim, or Christian. Spirit is only present when spinning through this tunnel. The soul energy contains love, compassion, and kindness. I'm realizing that my tranquility matters. You don't ask, why am I here in this tunnel? You just accept and understand. I remember getting into actually, it wasn't the end of the tunnel, and ending up under a tree. In 2011, when I went to Los Angeles to give a near-death experience talk, I learned that this tree is called the Tree of Life. I didn't know what the Tree of Life was, but I sat in this Game of Thrones-like tree and had my life reviewed, returning to the idea that 0 to 60 was recorded every moment from my birthday. 1 year old, 2 years old, learning to walk, going to school, and playing in the park was a matrix. As you look at this matrix again, you realize you're downloading every moment and witnessing yourself do bad things. So I looked down at myself, and Peter looked at young Peter with no judgment, no opinion, just you could have done better. These life reviews, these short moments of life, are kind of like a Diet Coke or Coca-Cola commercial. Just start, begin, just a slice of life, watching your life before you and seeing things. I recall not voting or caring. I remember throwing a gum wrapper out the window into the river and watching it sweep into the current, where it mixed with other trash, debris, needles, cat litter, fast food bags, and needles as it went down the river to the lakes to the ocean. I realized why my one conduct affects everyone. On the other hand, the Matrix records everything we do on Earth, even when we don't think anyone is watching. That dawns on you. As my life review continued, I noticed times I wasn't ashamed of or proud of. As you're gazing down at Peter, I believe what mattered to me was, you could have done better, Peter. As I experienced each moment, and there are so many, we could spend hours talking about life review. As I saw these events, it was like clearing out human errors that didn't serve a function in my conscious or subconscious. As I'm watching this and understanding and accepting and downloading, I remember it's not like I had to forgive myself, but that's how it felt, as if it was saying, you know what, Peter? This is what you did, you own it, you accept it, don't do it again. I'm listening to my thoughts as if I'm wearing headsets with no other sound but the sound before me. I still can't swear it was Jesus or an angel. It was an enlightened entity more sophisticated than anything I had ever seen on Earth. I remember the brilliant light gushing from this corporeal presence, not questioning his identity because it was a male shape. I didn't see myself, but I could see this person looking over my life evaluation. You're watching, and I loved it. It humbled me. Insightful experience. It woke me up. I recall leaving this life review and the tree and seeing a galaxy of stars and shards. It was like looking into the sun before me, but it was just this gold substance. I realized that we are all connected. The grass, the beach, the mountains, the sky, the rivers, and we are no more than the rock, the trees, the cats, the dogs, and the dolphins, downloaded into my consciousness. Carbon is all we are. We return to Earth when we die. I also realized we live lifetimes after lifetimes. Karma doesn't mean you're punished for your past actions when you return. None of that. In your past lives, you didn't do it. When you return, you can repeat till you finish. I suppose karma repeats itself until the lesson is learned, applies to me. I look down at Earth, see war, see nations, see greedy people doing bad things, and see politicians around the world making decisions that damage humanity, whether it was forests or war. It felt like decision makers were making them for profit, which bothered me. Over the years, many people have criticized me and said, "Oh, you're talking about spiritual? What is it? Spiritual identity, spiritual politics." But that's not what it was about. I wrote this book in the 1990s when none of this mattered. I recall thinking, it just did not sit into this thing called love and compassion. Many of us who've had near-death experiences know that when we travel through this tunnel, life review, the only thing that matters is where did you shine? Where you helped? You helped whom? Did you give here? Did you assist this park-falling old lady? Care for someone? Did you avoid when necessary? You didn't speak. The shoulda, could have, and would have concept was part of my knowledge. How should I proceed? Could I have done better? Would I have done better? What important is the present moment? That moment counts. I try my hardest to be kind. Many individuals still doubt near-death experiences. Many individuals have chastised me for sharing this near experience. I was quite proud of this. When I returned, I joyfully told the physicians and nurses what occurred to me. I immediately discovered that nobody wanted to hear this. As I looked down at myself and our planet, the moment that made a difference was when I saw pharmaceutical companies making drugs that benefited their profit lines, but created 3 more diseases. I recall prioritizing realism, watching the harm of war and looking down at each country and what we suffered all around the planet, watching sons marching off to battle and the agony it cost families. And I mean, the scars of war are just ricocheting through my awareness. Looking down at all this, I remember seeing the planet's filth. I could see the coastlines and our future. I could envision myself authoring books, touring, and talking about my near-death experience without stuttering. The voice asked, "Do you want to go back?" in the face of all this. And I said yes. I recall hitting my body. Impact occurred when I hit my body. Not able to explain. I felt like I was flying out of the cosmos from the stars and planets, not going back into the tunnel or operation room. I recall everything happening at light speed, felt my soul dragged down like a vacuum cleaner into my body. When I hit my body, I felt pain. I felt the surgery in my stomach and anal route. I smelled drugs with my eyes closed. I heard. My doctor informed me I was out for 3.5 weeks. On November 11, I operated room 11 in cubicle number 11, and I died at 11:11 p.m., or 1 minute and 11 seconds. So these 11s became my struggle when I returned from surgery, which was difficult. My motivation was numerology. I guess I woke up at 3.5 weeks. I remember opening my eyes and seeing the doctors and nurses, and I saw God, numbers, and the plan. Doing what? I couldn't stop chatting. I recall nurses and physicians looking at me like I was insane. I could see their eyes widen like I was a circus show. A nurse stood by and listened without judging. I could hear their opinions of me. I recall one nurse saying, "Oh my God, this guy's a nutcase." This became my life struggle. People stopped coming to the hospital, and doctors didn't listen to me during my months there. I recall getting these drugs. Morphine, prednisone, and other medicines caused strange effects. I lost my sight and couldn't walk. I was 85 pounds. I developed a facial staph infection. My life was terrible then. I learned wisdom from my darkest experience, making it my best. I got life in return. I understood my destination and actions had purpose. The final was wonderful. Though I was in the war with people not believing, that was hard. I still don't hear from the family. What little family I had, friends stopped visiting. The hardest part was that in the late 80s and 90s, when I was 85 pounds and had brown sores on my face, everyone thought I had AIDS. So no one spoke to me. When one's life is dark, spiritual people delve within. In fact, I did. Starting to read. I returned to a mediocre news career. I couldn't discuss it. When I was getting my hair cut, a woman came up to me and said, "You died, didn't you? And you came back." I suppose she saw a miracle in me at that moment. I opened up and told my tale, and she did too. She died on the table after cosmetic surgery. I told her about my surgery and clinical death. We were like 2 lost souls who discovered each other at opposite ends of the earth. So that became my hope. I become a student by reading and studying. With studying, I started doing free readings at work. I lived a double life and did readings, and people came to me. I work Monday through Friday. Readings on Saturdays and Sundays took up too much time, so I started charging. I remember charging $25/day. They'll leave, but they kept coming. Next thing you know, I'm offered a series to utilize numerology to solve paranormal cases, and I'm touring the world as a ghost hunter. I look back at this moment in my life. It seems like my fate was predestined. Evidently, I was off track. I can proudly state that I am a numerologist, spiritual, not a guru, not astrology, numerology, but an expert in this field. I've helped others with it for years. Many people come to me with abusive relationships or tortured family situations, so I have great clients. As a paranormal investigator, I look back at this moment as if my worst fear became my greatest miracle, as if I journeyed through the darkest shades of despair and ended up in a rainbow of light and possibilities. I think for your audience, no matter what you go through, no matter how many unhappy experiences you have, job, relationship, neighbor, not making enough money, I learned to use my thoughts correctly and keep an open mind. I think that doesn't matter as we move towards so much judgment, right against left and extreme versus liberal. The important thing is where you are today, how you're showing love. Has this person received assistance? Are you kind? I discovered from the other side that we have a choice today. Where am I? Am I doing something? If this fails, what do I do? How to drop this option? When the decision fails, you don't abandon your job. You discover alternative. I usually recommend to love what you do till your passion appears. It will always manifest itself, sometimes even if not immediately. Continue, don't quit. Someone who lost his sight is speaking. Your interviewee has 3 months to live. Today, I'm telling you I couldn't walk. I understand social profiling, but I also know that despite what we see and feel, there is good on this globe, and decent people may be used. Take a moment, do your best to be kind, and watch that one stone on the glass ripple around the earth. Thanks for listening to my tale. Looking lost at the skylight. I hope this helps. When our eyes low, we all fall.